Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel Techie Kumar. So in the last video of this tutorial, we learned about Docker registry. So since the beginning of this tutorial, we are following one slide. So let's see whatever we have covered so far. So far we have covered about Docker container, Docker image, Docker registry. So in this video, we are going to talk about Docker client and server, and we will understand how Docker act as a client and a server. So I have been skipping this topic from the beginning, and I promise that we will discuss these things in detail. So this is the time. Now we are going to discuss about this client and server architecture of Docker. So let me open a whiteboard. So before getting into the Docker, let's talk about the client server architecture. So I hope most of us we already know, right, what is client server architecture, because every day we come across such instances and we are surrounded by client server architecture model. So let's say we are using Facebook. We are using Facebook. So Facebook has its server and we are using our mobile. So let's say we are using mobiles. Sorry for bad drawings, but consider them as mobiles. And from our mobile, we are trying to get data from this server. Okay. So we are clients. We can consider us as a client, right? So we are client and this every Facebook is a server. Let's say we are trying to access our email. Maybe you have an account on Gmail or maybe Yahoo or any other email providers. So let's say you are going to access Gmail, right? So this Gmail is a Google product which is running on their server, and you are trying to access the information from their server. So here you are client and this Gmail is a server. So this is client server architecture that you must know. And I'm not going into much detail because I believe everybody here, whoever is watching, they must know, right, client server architecture. Now the most important thing that what we need to discuss here is about Docker. So we install Docker engine, right? So when we install Docker engine, that comes with all the components. Okay, we will discuss Docker architecture when we finish this lecture, and in the upcoming session, I mean the next session, we will discuss about the Docker architecture. So this is the component what we are talking about so far. So this component is client and server. So when we install Docker engine, we get all the components installed, and now as an installation we get two things. We get Docker CLI, Docker CLI, and we get Docker server. Both get installed in one system. Let's say if I take an example of my system. So in my system, when I install Docker, so I have Docker server as well as Docker CLI, right? So now we have both client and server. Here Docker CLI act as a client, this act as a client. Okay, so this act as a client and this Docker act as a server. Docker engine act as a server. Specifically you can mention like Docker engine here. Okay, now don't bother about the architecture, internal architecture, just focus here for client and server architecture. So let's see and get into the code and let's see how it is working when we are discussing about the client server architecture in terms of Docker. Let's clear this. So I will first try to check the Docker version. So Docker version. So you can see here, right, we have two things. We have client details and we have server details. So here you can see, right, we have client and here we have server, right? So we have client and server. So as I said, right, this Docker installation has both client and server architecture. So whenever we execute any command on that command line, it goes to the Docker server, okay, which is running in our system, and it returns the output. Okay, so now let me show you that if it is a Docker client and server architecture, then it must be able to access via REST clients. Yes, you are right, we can access those commands through REST clients as well. To verify the number of containers up and running, we use this command. We use -a to list down all the containers including the stopped containers. So as of now, we don't have any containers up and running. So to use the REST API call from your REST client, when I talk about the REST client, it means I'm talking about a software or an application which act as a REST client to call APIs, right? So for example, I have used Insomnia, we have Postman, you can use other softwares as well. So you can choose Postman, which is very popular. I prefer to use Insomnia, which is very light. So now first of all, to use this feature, right, REST API call from a REST client, you must have to do some configuration on your system so that you can call the APIs. I will share the a link which will help you to do that configuration in your local for Windows, for Linux operating system as well as Windows operating system. But for Mac, you have to do something different. Here you have to run a container which will take care of the configuration part. You just need to understand you have to run a container. I will share that command in the description. So this is the container that we need to run, and this container will take care of your configuration for Mac. So in this command, the most important thing is the image what we are using. This is the image what we are using. The most important thing that I want to highlight here is we are using this image bobrik socat, and then we are using the docker port 2375, means container, a port inside this container that will be exposed on the localhost port with 2375. So on the localhost you can access on this 2375 port, okay, and this act as just like a proxy, okay, this act like a proxy, and you might have to understand like why we are using UNIX-CONNECT and fork and TCP-LISTEN. So I have planned to create a separate video for this where I will explain about this socat. Then after you will be able to understand why we are using this socat, okay. So but as of now you just need to execute this command and your container will be up and running. So let me just execute this. So your container is up and running in the background. Now let's go back to Insomnia. So if I go to Insomnia, okay, so maybe you will say that like how I will come to know where is the API, right? So to know the API endpoints, you need to go to Docker's page where you can get that details. So this is the link I will share in the description, and this is the link where we can find the Docker API reference. So here if you come to this place API reference by version, okay, so you will find that. So if you come here and you can just take the latest one. So if you come to this latest version, you will find that what are, if suppose I want to get a info, so how I can do this. So on the right hand side you can see excuse me, on the right hand side you can see the example has been given here. So if you want to call the containers inside, means you want to get the information about the containers in the format of JSON, so you need to provide you need to hit this endpoint, and if something goes wrong you will get this kind of error message if it is 400 or 500. So let's try that. So I'm going to get the information of the containers which are up and running in my Docker system. So let's go to and open the Insomnia. So if I come here and just hit this localhost 2375 container/JSON, So because this is a get, we don't need any body, so just let's hit that. So now here you can see, right, we have one container up and running. We can get this information from the CLI as well. If I go to CLI and run docker container ls-a, so we are getting some limited information, but there are commands which will help you to get the detailed information. So here you can see, right, we hit the 2375 container JSON. Let's see few more endpoints. So just now we saw about containers. Now let's look into the images. So what we could do, we could do list images, build, delete, or create. So we can perform almost any operations what we can perform it from docker CLI. So let's see to list images, right? So if I click here and if I come to the right hand side, it is explained, right, what is the endpoint /images/JSON. So let's try that in REST client. So I'll do this images/JSON and hit this. So now you can see like what are the images available in our system. So we can find the IDs, we can find the labels, and we can also find the repository tags as well. So let's go to the command line, CLI command line interface, and clear this and try to find out the images image ls, hit enter. So you can see this, we have images here. So that's what, like, you know, similar to this image list images, we can perform any other operation as well. If we come to networks, right, so if you go to network, you have the option to list network, inspect, and other things. Let's do some inspect networks, and with ID we need to pass with ID. So before that we need to list the network, right? So to list a network we need to do /networks. So let's go here and do /networks. So you can do /networks and you can copy this, copy the ID, and now you can see like the network details are available from the Docker engine. So now we can try the another one to inspect a network. That's it. So we can get a particular network details here. So this is also a easy one. We just need to understand like how uh, Docker act as a client and a server. We saw that, right? This CLI docker CLI command is acting as a client, and we have a Docker engine running on our server which act as a server and which provides the details. So why we have a REST client? So because if the Docker engine is running on remote system, okay, and if it is has exposed a port, so we can manage the instances of containers, right, or images or any kind of operation from the remote location using this REST API. So that is where it is going to help. So I hope I have covered this. If you have any question, please put it in the comment section, and thank you very much for watching my video. If you really like it, please hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed this so far, please subscribe my channel. Thank you so much once again.